You're listening to the Black Eagles podcast with Sinan Schwarting and Kaan Bayazit.
Ahmet Dursun Sergen aldı. Sergen Bülent yan yana. Sergen Bülent. Sergen. Yanında Tümer var. Tümer'e doğru aksın kaybetti. Tümer topu aldı. Sergen aldı. Gol! Gol! Sergen attı. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi.
İbrahim'in pası. Roma. Şimdi Ahmet. İkinci gole gidiyor Beşiktaş. Ahmet.
Ready? Welcome back, everybody. This is episode 70 of Beşiktaş International's The Black Eagles podcast. I am your host, Sinan Schwarting, live from New York City. And once again, with me is the young, my protege, Evran Akman from Canton, New York.
What's up?
How's it going, man?
Chilling.
So, how are you feeling without relaying any feelings about today's match? Aside from that, all things good. Had a good weekend. You're finished with school, right?
Correct. 'Cause I'm on summer break now.
Yeah. Well, congrats to you for that. Hopefully, you'll get good grades. That's probably coming soon, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure our listeners are enthralled by this segment right now. Anyway, let's get to the subject because, of course, we are coming fresh off a match day. For those of us here in the United States, it is in fact still the same calendar day as the match day that we just witnessed. At least for recording. Hopefully, I can get this thing out even still on the same calendar day. We'll see. So today, Beşiktaş was at home in Vodafone Park, hosting Alanyaspor, a team with rising aspirations, who's had a pretty solid second half of the season. What were your thoughts going into this match, Evran? Were you worried about us getting a result here?
I mean, after last week, I guess you'd have to be sort of worried because team morale was down, and based on the attendance of the game, the club morale was down. But I think just like there was a lack of. It just seems there's so little on the line. It seems like after the loss, I wasn't really nervous. Just kind of like, let's see what happens.
Yeah, there was like almost nothing to fight for in a weird way, especially because Trabzon only managed to draw previous to this match. So that put a little less pressure on the team. But that did mean that if Beşiktaş were to win this match, they would secure third place. And so we'll come back to that, obviously, after the match. You did also bring up something important there, Evran, which was the attendance. Will you say a word about that? Beyond, so what were we talking about? I think was that 14K?
17,000 is what beIN Sports reported.
17,000 out of a total. What are we?
41,900.
41. Yeesh. So
we're supposed to be,
we're speaking of supposed to be, we are supposed to be the most fervent fan base in Turkey. So that's not a good look, especially considering, and I think I'm gonna hand the mic over to Aurelian, metaphorically anyway. Yeah, he mentioned that Fener, despite being out of this league for weeks, if not months, definitely they've been out for months. They've managed to sell out their matches throughout the season, so it's not a good look for us to be having a hissy fit like that at this stage of the season, especially with something still theoretically to play for. We'll get more into that when we talk about the table and how this thing all shook out in the end. But let's get into this thing. So I'll talk about lineups and then hand it over to you to give a little analysis on that. Burak Yilmaz started up front, so I'll start from the front this week. What the hell? Guven Yalcin started on the left side with Ricardo Quaresma on the right. Adem Ljajic back into the number 10 slot. Naturally, considering how poorly things went last week when he wasn't there. Atib Hutchinson and Dorukhan Tokud started in the back line of the midfield. In the defense, we saw Domagoj and Nicolas Isimat Midin, otherwise known as Isi Miran, with Caner Erkin on the left side and Adriano on the right side. So somehow Necip was so important he needed to play against Galatasaray, but Alanyaspor needed a little more quality this week, I guess we could say, for some reason. And then, of course, Loris Karius would start in the goal again. Comments on that, Evran? Sort of weird that Necip was not important enough to start against Alanyaspor. What do you think?
Well, I mean, this was the lineup I was talking about as like the alternative to the one we played against Gala, where we bunkered down. This is like the more idealistic attacking lineup. But
and it's not even that. It's not even that aggressively attacking, right? Like it's sort of moderated. This might have been a good one against Galatasaray.
Well, I guess
not like we went with like
instead of Quaresma, who's not as hardworking, and then only one true defensive midfielder instead of two. So I mean, maybe it's not super attacking, but compared to what we played last week, this is
certainly. Especially, I guess, Guven Yalcin is naturally a forward or striker playing on the wing. Next to Burak. So yeah, I know you're right. You're actually right. I should just
for what we have, it's probably our most attacking lineup. Unless you put Kyle Larin in there and do some crazy stuff, but
yeah, right, sure. Of note is that Papis Cisse started up front for Alanyaspor. He's coming in off a very solid second half of the season here with Alanya, and a good season all around. I think Ozan Tufan also started for them. Jalma. Savelas was a presence for them on the back line. And Sakala, of course, thanks as always to Emre Hasturk for providing stadium sounds. Live from Vodafone Park, straight from the game today against Alanyaspor. Thank you, Emre. Keep them coming.
Parayla şampiyonluk ne kadar kolay. Gerisi Galatasaray. Parayla şampiyonluk ne kadar kolay. Gerisi Galatasaray. Vahap Beyaz, Ahmet Çakar. Gerisi Galatasaray. Vahap Beyaz, Ahmet Çakar.
But yeah, anyway. Let's just get into this sucker. Let's talk about this match a little bit. So the kickoff was on time at Vodafone Park, and things got off to a nice little start for Beşiktaş, with them scoring after being on the attack, actually, right from the get-go. On maybe their third try or fourth try, boom, there it was in the 11th minute. Adem Ljajic scoring. Nobody credited with an assist. Nobody credited with an assist. Thoughts, Evran? Or not thoughts. Give me the color commentary.
Yeah. So Burak got the ball in about the right half space in between the middle of the field and the wing. Looked like he held on to the ball for too long, but then he slid Guven Yalcin into basically on goal on the right side of the box. He went to shoot it. Defender closed him down and hit off the back of the defender's calf. Then basically turned into a square pass for Adem Ljajic just to tap in. So there was no assist because it was a deflected shot.
So it was deflected. Okay, yeah. That was the only question. I was surprised nobody was credited with an assist, but yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Despite that, was there anything else that happened before the goal that was of note?
Yeah, well, they did score a goal actually, but it was ruled out for offside. It was a really good free kick from Junior Fernandez. Karius tipped it onto the post, and then when Cocker got the rebound, he was offside, but it was a really outstanding save before that.
Yeah, great free kick by him. What was his name? Junior Fernandez.
Yeah.
Great kick by Fernandez. Almost eluded Karius, but he had a great diving save on the right side. Smashed it into the post. It went back across the goal line, and then Cocker actually finished fairly well from an angle. It was perhaps a disappointment that nobody from Beşiktaş defense could get there first. That was a little weird because Cocker was behind like two guys and he managed to get there first, but I guess he had momentum carrying him. Anyway, but it didn't count. Then Ljajic scored. But beyond that, I think Beşiktaş had a couple attacks even still, right? Before Ljajic scored. Is that right?
Yeah, they were pushing a little bit, like nothing major, no major chances, but they were pushing other than that lone free kick from distance.
Yeah, and so naturally that goal sort of calmed the game down a little bit. There's a little bit less action, especially in front of the goals. But again, in the 44th minute, unfortunately this time things would go against Beşiktaş. And was it on a set piece? It was, right?
Yeah, set piece.
Not a corner kick, but a free kick from the outside, swung in, took a weird bounce off of Caner Erkin, ricocheted right off him into the goal. Give us the color commentary there. An own goal credited to Caner. I just did it, right?
Basically, but so
who took
Quaresma
the kick?
showed. I don't actually remember, but Quaresma showed his defensive prowess, and he chased all the way back, shows him to the end line, and then tries to slide tackle him anyway. Gives away the free kick. It's swung in. I believe his Cocker flicks it on, but he doesn't really flick it into the box. He does it slightly backwards. It was really just like an awkward angle, and Caner wasn't expecting it. It kind of hit him in like the shoulder arm area, and then bounced into the far post. And that was 1-1.
Yeah, not a nice way to concede, obviously. And it didn't look good, honestly, because after the first goal, Beşiktaş looked a little bit less focused and composed. And so I probably wasn't alone in thinking that Beşiktaş might actually struggle to get the deciding goal from there. But anyway, because that was in the 44th minute, they went into the half tied 1-1. Any comments about that first half? And are there any major highlights that we didn't cover, via goals?
I don't really. It wasn't like I think Beşiktaş played better, but they didn't really. There was a couple times where they almost could have had a chance, but they screwed up. Like the one time Burak went through on goal, held on for it too long, and his shot got deflected. And then at the end of the half, right after the goal, Güven had a decent chance, or not a decent, a good chance, but the goalie made a solid save.
That's right. Yeah, so, he shot it from distance, and it was actually on target. Right, it was not bad. But anyway, into the half, it would go 1-1. And I think you would agree, right? You were probably a little bit on edge at that point. There was no guarantees we were going to win this when they equalized.
I mean, I think based on the run of play, 1-1 was harsh for us.
Yeah, for sure.
I felt like if we continued to play the same way, it
was possible.
The win should come, but there's always that chance that we concede right before halftime. And then we come out flat. So
right, and like Burak was looking to not be having his best game, certainly in the first half, and I won't say anything about the second half yet. It just looked like, especially after the disappointing loss last week to Galatasaray, the team just came out a little stale. But anyway, second half starts. Durkan Tokus gets himself a yellow card 5 minutes into the second half, in the 50th minute. And just 4 minutes later, in the 54th minute, Adem Ljajic would cue up Ricardo Quaresma, who would take a couple touches on the ball and slot it into the goal. giving Beşiktaş the lead, despite what I had just said. Evran, I know you are dying to do color commentary on this one because it was a very nice goal. Tell me about it a little bit. Tell everyone about it.
Alright, so Güven got the ball in our own half on the left side of the field, played in Adem Ljajic like a short 10-yard pass. He turned and did something that usually with Quaresma on the field, he's sitting all the way on the opposite touchline. So he does a long sweeping ball to Quaresma. He gets the ball one-on-one with the fullback, just kind of like casually cuts inside. No one closes him down. Takes another touch towards his left foot. No one closes him down. Takes another step and just rips it to the near post, upper 90. Boom, golazo. Crowd goes crazy. Or I go crazy.
I was expecting, I'm disappointed, everyone. I was expecting something more flowery, like the sublime finish from distance, set hearts ablaze throughout Istanbul or something. I don't.
He set my heart ablaze, so let's put it that way.
Yeah, but your heart's like theoretically always ablaze for him. But anyway, yeah, in the 64th minute, Junior Fernandez, who had nearly broken hearts, those same hearts, came out of the match for Villafañez, one of my favorite names in the Super League this season. In the 68th minute, Shinji Kagawa would come into the match for Güven Yalcin. Again, I don't quite get why Şenol Güneş refuses to take Burak Yılmaz out of matches. We know he's slightly old. We know he's very injury prone. When it's not happening, when it's not clicking, I'm surprised he doesn't let Güven Yalcin play in his natural position a little bit as well. He's younger. He's probably got more legs underneath him. But anyway, despite that, he didn't do that. He took Güven Yalcin out. In the 79th minute, Emre Karaca would come out for Ayarolu. Emre Karaca was a bit petulant. He almost made my list with Adem Büyük for this season. Want that on the record. And a number of others who are perpetually there, like Emre Belözoğlu, etc. In the 81st minute, Jermaine Lens would come into the match for Dorukhan Tokus, which I think sent Adem Ljajic to the wing.
Sent Ljajic back to Dorukhan's position, and then Lens went to the wing.
Oh, wow. Okay, that I didn't really know what was going on at that stage. And I don't think many did, honestly. The team was out of sorts. Not really out of sorts, just defending and trying to...
It was an interesting change when you're up 2-1.
Yeah, and then attacking on the counter a lot. Lots of opportunities wasted. We'll talk a little bit more about those in Shinji Watch, I think. Especially one of those. In the 88th minute, Necip would come into the match. Of course, we've got to have him out there, just in case we might be able to have the opportunity to give him the low light of the match. And he nearly did.
For his 3 minutes, yeah.
He nearly did it, and so he came into the match in the 88th minute for Adem Ljajic, and in the 90th minute, lo and behold, who on earth might it be to be receiving a yellow card? Of course, Necip Uysal. Not even, officially 2 minutes he had on the pitch, but I would say probably about a minute and a half. I think that's a generous
a minute and change.
Yeah. They tend to round him out. So in Sakala, in the 91st minute, would get yellow carded, probably making up for the fact that he got sunned to death by Ricardo Quaresma in the first half. Ricardo Quaresma then decided to try a Trivela shot with no opportunity, with no chance. But he did sun and Sakala into the turf eternally. I don't know if he'll ever recover from that. I thought you might enjoy that, though. A little color commentary from me. But yeah, that's how it would end. They would have 5 minutes of extra time. So in the 95th minute, the whistle was blown with Beşiktaş 2-1 victors.
Sergen Yalcin!
Another result at home for the Black Eagles. Evran, I give you first word. What were your thoughts coming out of this match?
wasn't the worst performance. I think we actually, for the first time in a while, we dominated a game.
Yeah, in a weird way.
It looked okay. It wasn't as bad as we've seen.
Could have ended with a nicer, it could have been a little bit less heart attack inducing, right? Come the end.
That is, for sure. But I think considering certain players weren't having good days, like Laic didn't have a great day despite having a goal and assist, but just through the run of play, he was maybe average. Burak was definitely below average. Kagawa wasn't great. Guven wasn't sharp, I'll say. He wasn't. His first touch, stuff like that was letting him down. So keeping all that in mind, it was pretty decent.
Yeah. You didn't even mention who I'm probably going to give my low light to, but that's good. Gives us the element of surprise. But yeah, I can't disagree with that. Yeah, it's weird that we dominated this kind of a match, considering again, right, what kind of a match it really was, and how unconvincing it was in some ways. But at the end of the day, I think Beşiktaş could and probably should have scored at least 2 more goals. Before we talk about that, I guess let's talk about the stats a little bit to sort of give some context to what we're saying. Beşiktaş had 12 shots to Alanyaspor's 9, 4 on target to their 3. Possession went 58% to Beşiktaş to 42%, obviously. 490 passes completed by Beşiktaş to their 350. 81% accuracy for Beşiktaş to their 72. Not bad from Alanya, but I've said from almost day one that Beşiktaş really wants to be at about that 80%, but really ideally above it. That's when they're performing at their best clip, typically. That obviously was reflected today. Atiba Hutchinson, again, like he's such a vital part of that. I don't think I'll give him highlight today, so I want to just maybe give a special shout out to that fact that he really was, especially in the first half, probably why we didn't carelessly give anything away, and he was very solid. 20 fouls committed by Alanyaspor to 17 by Beşiktaş. This was a rough game, scrappy. But only 2 yellow cards given to Beşiktaş players, 1 to Alanya. Offsides 5 times. Alanyaspor was a little aggressive, a little jumpy, and one of those times obviously resulted in a goal being taken away. So too bad for them. Twice Beşiktaş were caught offside. But Alanyaspor had 5 corners, so despite having a lot less of the ball and being pinned back for much of the game, they did have 5 corners versus Beşiktaş's 2. Evran, I sort of stole your thunder by doing stats there, but do you want to give us your real sort of football nerd stats? I know you like to take it up a notch.
Oh, we don't. Those aren't available currently. This is not we're doing this podcast too early.
We're being too prompt. Yeah, we're being too timely about this.
Too prompt, yeah. But
well,
I can tell you we created 4 big chances to Alanya's 1.
Yeah.
So in terms of sometimes you can take a shot from 45 yards and a shot from 1 yard, and they are each a shot. So in terms of chances created, not just shots, we had a pretty major edge on them.
Yeah, I would believe it. And
which a 12-9 shots doesn't exactly reflect. So I think a 4-1 big chance number kind of reflects more of the game a little bit.
Yeah, and I think Karius had 2 actually fairly impressive saves, although I don't think one of them would be like a good chance. It was a shot from distance that he sort of parlayed out. But definitely worth noting that he stood up in ways that we've seen keepers not stand up for Beşiktaş. This reeked of the type of game where we could let that last equalizer slip late in the game just to stab us a little bit more, after last week. And so Karius,
when you miss a few counterattacks,
exactly,
and then, a little bit like Ajax in the Champions League.
Yeah, or like Beşiktaş most of the time, in our lives.
Most of the time.
But so Karius has really heated up, and it's things like that reflect having a good keeper in form. So we'll see how that pans out, for next season. But it'd be, certainly he's proven his value. And I don't think there are many Beşiktaş fans who are anti-Karius anymore. We just hope that those who were previously didn't burn bridges enough that he's just like, I gotta get out of here. Which, could happen if we're gonna be honest. But so yeah, do you have anything else to say about the stats of this? Do you think that? Are you surprised that Beşiktaş had so much more possession of the ball at 58%?
I mean, maybe if you asked me before the game, if I didn't see the lineup, yeah, I might have been surprised, especially because Alanya's a pretty decent team and they put out a lot of attacking players. However, at home, you would still expect us to at least play a little bit.
Yeah.
And then when you see the lineup, you see
Guven.
one defensive midfielder, Guven, Quaresma, Lajic. And then Adriano helps also with possession. Not so much Janer, but Adriano's always solid with that tiki-taka kind of stuff.
I still count Durakan as a defensive mid. Definitely more of a mobile one, but
box to box. But
because I think a central midfielder or a defensive midfielder can play, because the box to box is like the role, right? And he has the ability to track back, and even the kind of inclination and the desire to track back a lot. He's made a lot of key tackles, I think. So,
well, I think the defensive midfielder doesn't always track back because he's already
right.
there.
Yeah, no,
you know
sure,
what I'm saying?
sure.
Box
No,
to box
and
is
that's what I mean.
More likely to step forward.
Yeah, he has an inclination to go forward, but then he never. What I mean is he has the engine and he never doesn't come back. So he functions more like I'm not particularly comfortable if he's the guy who's relied on as a central midfielder, unless we have someone with more ability to go forward next to him. I don't know. We'll have to talk about that in the off season and like what kind of things the team needs to build around. But let's get back into this match, I guess. Let me hand the reins over to you. Why don't you tell us about the standings? Because now we have the full week out, done. That's the benefit of playing on a Monday, I guess. So where does this leave us, Evran?
So unfortunately, both Gala and Başakşehir won. They both were behind, and then came back. Just to tease us. And the Gala game had a little more controversy than the Başakşehir game, but that doesn't really matter. So
2 goals in extra
we're still
time
4 points.
for Galatasaray to win. So they're down 2-1, and then
an interesting penalty decision.
Very interesting.
So Gala and Başakşehir are 66 points, and they play each other next week with 2 games left. We have 62 points. Trabzon dropped points, so they're now down 5 points behind us instead of 3. So we have a bit of a cushion as we play them next week. So theoretically, we haven't confirmed 3rd place, but if we can win one of our last 2 games, we guarantee 3rd place. And if we win both our games, we're still technically, mathematically able to win the title. But I would not bet anything on that at all. That is assuming Gala and Başakşehir tie, and then they both lose their next game. So
yeah, and then even if they drew that last game because of the goal differential, because I think we would actually be level.
Yeah, I'm down to head-to-head and goal
because
differential
of the bad result against Galatasaray. That's the killer. That's the killer.
So second place is still a maybe.
Yeah.
But it looks like 3rd place we have a bit of a cushion on both sides.
So here's how it really shakes out for you. If you're like a dreamer, of the John Lennon variety, you probably want a draw because you want some dreamy hope that on the final match day some sort of weird miracle could occur, which is farcical, I would say, considering what the refs have shown the ability to do, not just against us, then again this week to favor Galatasaray. Again, 2 goals in extra time to give them a quote-unquote miracle win.
Probably the most realistic thing is to hope Galo wins, and then we win. So we're only 1 point behind Başakşehir, and then when they play Alanya's the last game, Alanya still actually is could still be in the hunt for that 5th place, assuming Gala wins their cup
Precisely.
final.
And
on
Sergen
Wednesday.
Yalcin is the
So
coach
they
of
would-
Alanya.
Yeah, they would have a spot to play for. If that 5th place would then go to the Europa
So
League.
it's weird to say you really might want to root for Galatasaray next weekend. Galatasaray is playing against
You
who
might.
in the final match day? Sivas.
Sivas.
Who's actually gotten a result.
In
Sivas got a
Sivas.
result against Beşiktaş here the other week, a few weeks ago, to kind of give us delusions of grandeur for another week or so.
Yeah.
So Sivas has turned heads, but come on, man. I wouldn't be surprised if they were like paid to throw the game, like to just like go on vacation a week early. Forget it. So I really feel like it's weird to say, but you kind of maybe want Galatasaray to ice Beşiktaş here and then hope we pass them.
Well, at the very least, we want an aggressive game with a lot of cards.
That could be good. That could be good.
So that they have everyone suspended for the following
And I feel
game.
like it's to our advantage that Emre Belözoğlu will be involved in the match because
he's on the yellow card. So I know
he's
that for a
bound
fact.
to stir emotions among everyone, including the crowd. So that should be to everyone's benefit who hates either of those sides. But yeah, let's go back to the videotape, as they say. Let's talk about this match. Because we actually have some news to talk about regarding one, there were elections that just took place, and two, we actually have a Beşiktaş international scoop, an exclusive via Kaan Bayazit, who's sort of running the other podcast these days, but he'll be back, of course. But yeah, he did give us a nice scoop to report. But so let's wrap up our thoughts on this match as quickly as we can to do that. And so I'll hand the mic to you again, Evran. Highlight. Who's your man of the match?
This might shock everyone, including you, but I have to pick the man that is Ricardo Quaresma, also known as Ricardo Andrade Quaresma Bernardo, also known as Kral.
It's Game of Thrones season, Evran.
Yeah,
like,
he
you could
actually
say like the firstborn House of Trivelas. Yeah, sorry.
But yeah, he got his 3rd goal of the season. I think I would give him man of the match. Maybe that's a little generous, but he created chances. He scored a nice goal. He wasn't completely awful defensively, which for him is an achievement. I think his link-up play was better than usual. Sometimes I'm sure a lot of people say he was still selfish, which obviously he'll always be, but he had a couple flashes of good link-up play. I think there's that one opportunity where Ljajic missed it, if you remember, where there was like 5-6 quick passes in the second half, and he did that first outlet pass to Atiba. So he was involved in all that.
Yeah.
But obviously, nice goal, game winner. Got to give my man some credit.
So in our group chat that we often allude to here, a lot of people were giving sort of trash talking. You could say Evran. I was actually among that group. I'm ashamed to admit about how poorly we thought Quaresma was playing in the first half. He really wasn't so good, but sure enough, he shut us all up with a very nice goal.
And 10 minutes after the halftime.
Yeah, right. Like pretty much right after we gave him the opportunity to shut us up. But I did cede to you that A, I was slightly trolling, and B, at the end, when the game was all wrapped up and we could take the first and the second half into account, certainly that second half was much better from him. He did a lot to help the team go forward, and they were very dangerous in attack. And he was not one of the ones who was wasting opportunities that were being gifted to him like others. He did sort of scrub a couple of opportunities, but a lot of people were scrubbing opportunities at that stage. And none of the really nasty ones either. So, obviously I wouldn't give him my highlight, but I would say, and I did say, he had a good game. He really did. And he settled into the match, which suggests that he was coming in cold, which makes sense. Şenol Güneş is
First
not.
start in a while.
Yeah, Chanel Gunesh is not Gunash. Chanel Gunesh has not. Is that like a Jewish food? Gunash. Anyway, yeah. But Chanel Gunesh has not been playing him much. So today there are a couple of cases of people looking iced, and needing time to settle into matches. Another one being Shinji Kagawa. But let's hold off on that for our little Shinji watch. And so I'll briefly talk about my man of the match. And I mentioned Atiba previously, but I already kind of gave him my shout out and warned you that I probably would not be selecting him as my highlight because I think I want to give it to Loris Karius. And for the reasons I already mentioned, this was the type of game that had letting in a late equalizer written all over it. And he did what he needed to do. Solid in the goal in a match where that was what we needed because we were wasting opportunities left and right up front, and so that's what it was going to come down to. And he stood the test of time, I guess you could say, in a way that we've seen so many keepers not. And Evran, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, Tolga Zengin, right? That was classic.
My favorite.
But then we've also got. Yeah, and for those of us a little older, such as myself, we've also got the Hakan Arikans, the Cenk Gonens, there have been so many.
The flycatcher, as Khan calls them.
Yeah, so many. Honestly, it's. I don't know. Again, I said this earlier. I don't think Karius has many haters left, if any. But if there are any of you out there, you don't know what you're wishing for. If you want him out of here, let me tell you what might come next. Fabry, for example, right, would be the one that many people have alluded to as coming back. He may have lost enough confidence in his escapades over in England this season that he might come back a shell of the player we knew with Beşiktaş previously. It's not the thing you want to do. You never want to take a keeper, especially who's in form, out of the formation. So, what do you think, Evran? Do you think I was right to give him this position, to give him this prestigious award, weekly award? And what do you think about the prospect of him maybe not playing for us next year, potentially?
Well, I mean, I think today he made 2 big saves, and that's really all he had to do. So you can't really, there's really no complaints. And then maybe the second one was he made it look a little bit better than it actually was, but certainly the first one, it was a difficult save, and the second one, even though it wasn't, maybe it was like 7 out of 10 difficulty kind of thing, it was still a big time moment. He had to come up big, and he came up big. So in that case, he, not that he won us the game, but he
kept it for us.
It can be difficult when you're not doing much, and then
exactly
you have to make a huge save. So it wasn't like he was, in his rhythm, like Tolga was against Leipzig that one year, that one game where he made like 30 saves, and we were like, "What the hell's going on?"
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's the sign of a confident keeper.
Yeah, exactly.
So hopefully, I think it would make sense unless the financials are so bad that we can't afford to just pay the $1 million for the second year of the loan. But we'll see.
That would be a desperate situation. But yeah. But so
let's go next year or something. But assuming we have any sort of money, I would assume he stays.
So you agree? I mean, what if it was between him and Fabry?
If we could get Fabry for free. But I think we just sold him for $6 million, so I don't think Fulham will let him go for free. But we'll see what happens.
Fulham's not going to do that, I would say. But realistically, right, bearing in that we'd probably have to spend let's say $3 million on Fabry to bring him back. Obviously, we'd get him for less than we sold him, but not nothing.
We're not.
And of course, he'd require a salary, not even just a salary, because he was on a fairly high wage already, and he would the problem many people had cited with us potentially having been able to keep him, even although it was pretty clear he wanted to go to England, I think, was that he merited a pay hike in a time that was sort of impossible for us to provide it for him. So I don't think he comes back saying, you know what, guys, just, you can pay me whatever you can, right? Like, that's not. He's also probably realistically coming on one of his last contracts, right? He's not getting any younger, so he's not going to be as willing to take a pay cut at this stage, right? These are.
I mean, he had a bad. I don't think he had a bad season, but he didn't play.
Yeah. He
had one not so good game and never played again. But I mean, his save percentage was still the same as it was with us, 70%. So just in terms of market value, he's down. So maybe he would take his old salary, but I would not count on it.
Yeah, especially
if we could even pay his old salary.
Right? If it's a new team, maybe like in England or something, sure. But like, it's us, and we know his value. We know what he's capable of, and he knows that. So it's not like we'd really have that as a bargaining chip. Anyway, low light for you. Who is the guy who you single out as being particularly poor?
I might be taking yours, but I don't think John Air was his best today.
Yeah, you stole my thunder. Yeah.
There's another guy who I would have given it off the bench, but I think I've been too hard on him for all the other weeks, so I'm gonna give him a break. So I'm gonna go with John Air.
You think you're gonna say Lens, right? I mean, because it could have been Nedjib too, I guess.
Well, I mean, John Air played the whole game, so he probably deserves it more. He had the own goal, which I'm not gonna say was exactly his fault, but he didn't look particularly aware of what was going on. It kind of looked like he was just looking at his man, not where the ball was.
Yeah, and you gotta at least peek over, right? You gotta do a couple peeks.
Yeah, wasn't great the whole game. His crosses weren't very good. He's never really solid defensively, but it wasn't like he was awful. I think he was just worse than everyone else, and he had the own goal. So.
Well, and I was actually going to point out that regardless of the own goal, which in and of itself doesn't necessarily give him the low light, he was just not sharp today. His passing was off. A lot of even short little passes were not where they needed to be. Guys had to track back a little bit and then lost their momentum going forward. Just generally off in a lot of little ways that cumulatively added up to a really poor performance. So yeah, I would have to agree. And indeed, yes, you did steal my guy. So now I have to think of another person to give the low light to, which, let's see.
Mr. Jermaine Lens.
No, I wouldn't give it to him.
The shot master.
I wouldn't give it to him over, for example, I would say Shinji Kagawa had a worse game than him. But I wouldn't give it to him over Nedjib, who literally his only contribution was a yellow card and then some really spotty other moments. Card, yeah, it was yellow card. Tough. Also, I should note that Domagoj Vida was really good. I forgot to say that. He probably could have been on the short list. He's always really good. Yeah, but he stood out.
The ball away that one time.
Yeah, and I was going to say that's why I didn't give it to him, because he had one almost fatal error, but we made up for it. Actually, EC Milan made up for it, although he was not so good for much of the match either. Low light today. I'm going to give it to Burak Yilmaz. Sorry, guys. Shinji Kagawa wasn't out there long enough. Nedjib wasn't out there long enough, although he only contributed negatively. But Burak Yilmaz was stale, cold, and it was one of those matches where I think a lot of people might say, of course, Şenol Güneş leaves him out there because he has the ability to score at any moment, right? But today, I really didn't feel that. He was sort of lacking in energy. And credit to Alanyaspor's defender, Savelas. And shout out to Sally. We both recognize this. He actually said it first, but I acknowledge that he was right. Savelas really got in his head. They had a few physical confrontations, and he held him in check and seemed to really have the best of him the whole match. And I thought just Burak, maybe if he didn't set the standard so high for as long as he has, I would give him more charity, but he really did seem out of sorts today and did not really contribute in any positive way. He didn't really do anything that was like, oh, well, at least he did that.
He had that pass on the first goal to Guven. when then his shot was deflected.
Yeah.
He had that, but other than that, he wasn't.
And that
particularly
wasn't
good.
like a masterful. I mean, it was good. It was proficient, right? But it's kind of also what he should have done, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, all around, at least this season, I don't know if it's just he's got the magic touch or whatever it is, but I think we can and almost should expect more than what we got this week, especially given that there is theoretically still quite a bit on the line. But I will say that I've heard that our fans called him out and booed him or whatever after the match, and that is stupid and absurd.
Yeah.
That's just terrible, and that's just illogical also.
Especially after we won. So.
Exactly. Yeah. Come on, guys. Just shut up. Sometimes just you might have something to say, but there's the concept of a filter. Everyone has to apply one, and some of us just call that common sense. And if you don't have it, you've got to kind of rationally, kind of consciously consider applying that filter to yourself. So just do it. Sometimes, if you get the 3 points, shut up. Just shut up. But all right, let's talk a little bit about some news for a change, and let's not talk too much about it because there's not a lot to say. But Evran, you go first because I think your news is more exciting.
Well, my news is kind of tied to your news, but as Khan his scoop is that Lucescu is expected to be the next coach of Beşiktaş, or it's almost a done deal, and based on the event that you're going to talk about, it's more likely.
Yeah.
But Lucescu used to coach us, obviously, way back in the day.
And we're talking about Mircea Lucescu, not Razvan.
Mircea Lucescu,
His son is also a somewhat respected
good coach. Yeah. But he actually, of course, he was the most recent coach of Turkey, and he flopped there. So maybe we're not too confident about him coming in. He's also getting up there in age. He's 73. So people have been saying some interesting things on the internet that I will not repeat that aren't very nice, but. Well, he's not exactly a new guy with new ideas.
Say something about that. Because that was a I know the rude comment you're thinking, right?
Yeah. Where someone said he's going to die in a few years. Or he gave a specific number, but
4.
Obviously.
Yeah,
4. But I think when Fatih Terim was fired for his kebab war, Lucescu was the first name that I wanted to coach the Turkish national team, and it really didn't work out. But if you look at his history from Gala to Zenit, his average points per game was almost always at 2 out of 3, which is really above average for any coach that we've had. And his Shakhtar teams were some of the best Eastern European teams, basically of the modern era. I'm not sure you guys remember them, but he had players like Douglas Costa, Mkhitaryan, Willian, Alex Teixeira, Fernandinho, Fred, who all went on to do bigger things. Except Alex Teixeira went to China, but
yeah, I mean he made Shakhtar a household name, honestly, in Europe.
They weren't a huge club. I mean, maybe in stature, but he really transformed their fortunes.
Yeah, no, they were in finals of European Cups and what have you.
They won the UEFA Cup under him once, and they did pretty good in the Champions League, and now they're still a good team now.
Yeah.
So there's reasons to be optimistic if he comes.
And he did come into the Turkish national side at an awkward time where it was quite clear that the team needed to be transitioning towards the next generation. And he did that. He did install guys like Çaylar, and he certainly gave Emre Mor plenty of opportunities. And Cengiz, I mean, there are so many actually, if you really think about it, there are quite a few examples of young guys who've gotten their call-ups under him. So he was not only tasked with transitioning the national team to the next generation, but he did so, and obviously not particularly successfully, but it was never going to be, that was never going to be graceful. We have to recognize that as a national side, Turkey is not where we're not at a place where we can just gracefully transition from one generation to the next. There are gonna be stumbles. We don't have like Mbappe and Pogba and people like that to just like immediately install, right? But so yeah,
And we have Nejip, so
and I say this, of course, yes. But actually, we do
don't
have
forget about
Dora
Pektamek.
Khan, who Chanel Ganesh has already brought up, which I'm happy about. But Pektamek and Nejip, stop. We also have Tolga Zenkin, right? Just in case.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I say this as someone who, I'm going to be 100% honest with you, is not a Lucescu guy. I've said this on numerous occasions. Khan's little interview, we had a whole episode about Guti as coach for Real Madrid, and an expert who had been following the youth team at the time talking about what his style would be. I really had bought into the notion that we were kind of rearing Guti as our guy, and I think he has the knowledge, the experience, and honestly the kind of reputation that could be positive for Beşiktaş, and ties to other clubs. I need not mention them because they're not even my favorite type of clubs, but regardless, I probably would be in the Guti camp, and if not Guti, someone younger with fresh ideas. But I'll say this about Lucescu: when he left, and I want to say it was 2004. He'd been with the side for 2 seasons. He won a title. He was ousted under precarious circumstances, some board drama. I won't mention the individual. Who was linked with kind of forcing him out. But anyway, I am under the very distinct impression that if Lucescu had been given 4 seasons, as Şenol Güneş has been given, he'd have at least as many titles as Şenol Güneş does. He'd have at least the 2 titles. He's shown via Shakhtar the ability to do very well in Europe and consistently well. So I think he probably would have been able to simulate the miraculous quote-unquote run that we had last year in the Champions League, and probably have even built something that could have endured more than we have, obviously. So I think that Lucescu in 2004, and so we're talking 14 years ago, could have become one of our most prolific and successful coaches in our club's history. But, and this is a big but, I cannot lie. Sorry. Sorry. I'm old, man. I'm old. It had to happen. I'm a dad, so I have license to make those sort of jokes. But seriously, it's 14 years later. 14 years. Which means he's 14 years older. And he was not like particularly young and spry even back then. He's in his 40s. He's in his 70s. Mid 70s.
Yeah.
I don't know. Football's changed a lot in those 14 years, especially even, you could say, in the last 5. So, is he the guy who's going to install some sort of modern, forward-thinking football, tactically speaking? I wouldn't bet on it.
Well, I mean, considering the other news, which is that
So should I mention? All right,
Fikret Orman.
let's cut into that. So we also, and this is big news. We just had an election, and it was something of an underwhelming election. Fikret Orman was running against one other dude who ran by the name of Hurser Tekin Oktay. And Senor Tekin Oktay had some wild ideas about bringing in folks along the lines of Zlatan Ibrahimovic,
Gareth Bale.
Gareth Bale. In order to salvage something here, which is mostly created by big financial problems. So I really don't see the logic there. But he lost. Shocker there. And he lost in such odd fashion. 4,000 of 12,000 voters showed up to cast their ballots, signifying a real lack of interest on the part of anyone in power to really even weigh in on this. I think it was probably a foregone conclusion that Fikret Orman was going to be continuing in power. And sure enough, the man won overwhelmingly. But so yeah, that locks in both the Lucescu rumor, which obviously he was behind in the first place, but it also locks in our approach to Japan for both marketing purposes and, at least in theory, the desire to lock down Shinji Kagawa long term. How do we pull that off? I'm not sure. Shin Oganesh is not playing Shinji Kagawa much, but this is a good segue to today's hashtag Shinji Watch, which I'm going to hand to you, Evran, because you're our color commentary guy. And then we're going to wrap this whole thing up. So tell us, what do you have to say about Shinji's performance today? And I guess, like, maybe either before or after, I'll let you figure out the narrative. What do you think about the proposition of him staying long term? Because obviously that's something that Fikret Orman has staked, almost in a weird way, the club's financial future on.
Today he played about 30 minutes, or is it maybe 20? He did okay. Really wasn't a vintage performance. There was a couple neat touches in there, as always with him, but he missed a really big chance to make it 3-1. That would have, iced the game. Quaresma basically went near the end line, cut back, slid in like a nice pass for him right outside the little 6-yard box, and kind of awkwardly passed it wide of the goal.
Yeah, he muffed it.
Yeah, it wasn't a class finish that we're used to. Usually he looks so. And then another time, he tried to lob the goalie from 40 yards, but he didn't really get it above knee height, and he kind of didn't really chip it either. It was not a vintage Kagawa performance, but I think just his movement was pretty good. His link-up play wasn't too bad. There were still some flashes of Kagawa in there. Yeah,
and I mentioned this earlier. I think we could probably make the argument that he's a little cold from not getting a lot of time. He does not seem to be the kind of guy who's going to react to the sort of Shin Oganesh mind games, I guess we could also say. Maybe it's time for him to stop playing around. Especially if the club hopes to keep him. And of course, Shin Oganesh has no stake in that because he's out of here. But maybe the team does. So what do you think about that?
About the Shin Oganesh mind games and...
Well, no, what I was saying earlier, like his future. Fikret Orman has clearly said that he's a part of it.
I think if the price is right and and our financials are right, he'll stay. I think it might actually help that he's not playing too well, because if he was scoring like he was when he first came and he continued that form, then he would have gone back. We're not gonna get him for 1 or 2 million, but maybe he continues to have slightly underwhelming performances. Potentially we bring him in, but I don't think there's exactly a need for both him and Ljajic at the club, especially with our financial situation. If we had money, I would say sure, but I'm not sure if we can afford to have 2 marquee number 10s. Because clearly neither one is adept at playing consistently at a position, so one of them might have to be sacrificed.
Yeah, and of course, given how efficient and effective Adem Ljajic has been, especially in the second half of the season, I really, it's very hard for me to see where Shinji Kagawa fits in. But at the same time, of course, the marketing, avenues as far as going out to the Far East, especially Japan, where they have a very solid economy and a very football-hungry populace that, will follow their stars to the ends of the earth, wherever they go, as we've seen with Keisuke Honda even. But I don't know how we build on that, honestly, especially if we don't re-sign Shinji Kagawa. Why would Japan have any interest in us as a brand or a product or a business partner? But so I don't know where we go. Do we bring in another Japanese player to maintain that interest? Who would that be?
I'm not exactly
I'd love one of the
expert
Sakais
at the Japanese league, but maybe
I like Sakai.
I mean, we had was that a Japanese sponsor or something that we had before Kagawa came in? Maybe you find you look for a more domestic player. the league. But
You mean like a prospect of some
like
kind?
a prospect of some kind. And like,
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I remember when Arsenal
for me-
signed Miyaichi, everyone was still excited. I mean, obviously Arsenal's bigger, but I think if you sign any Japanese player, it would probably still deliver some sort of hype. But it would have to be affordable.
But we're not in a position where he'd also have to be decent enough that hopefully there could be some end game there. But I mean, do you know Sakai, Gotoku Sakai, or in fact there's another Sakai as well?
I think it's Hiroki Sakai, yeah.
Hiroki, right? And they're both fullbacks. At a time when we definitely need the next generation of fullbacks to step in and spell these old timers we've got out there. That could be a nice solution. We've seen how well Nagatomo has done for Galatasaray over there. Anyway, it's all speculation. And again, stay tuned, everyone, because the season's winding up. And of course, as the transfer season gets into gear, there'll be lots to talk about. By the way, here's another little rumor. I don't want to give it too much credibility because the sourcing is not particularly good. But Ozan Ozukip is supposedly on the radar of Everton. That wouldn't be a shock. There have been a lot of English sides supposedly circling around him, but at the same time, he hasn't played for Beşiktaş. Do they really, even what would their interest be? Evran, say something before I take us out.
Shout out to Ricardo Quaresma, and shout out to all the haters. Haters make them stronger. One of the greatest players of all time, undoubtedly. No arguments to be made at all. But
I should not have given you the mic for this.
Put respect on my man. That's all I'm saying.
Do you think that's his last goal for Beşiktaş?
He'll score again next week, so probably not.
Oh, listen to that. Well, then there's still 2 more matches.
Still 2 more matches, yeah. And then he'll probably score again next season. So.
Oh, wow. So you really got him pegged in there for the long term?
Well, supposedly Lucescu likes him, so.
Okay, let's see. So on that note, I'm taking us out here. Follow us on Twitter at Eagles_podcast. Eagles plural. That is EAGLES _. Follow the mothership, Beşiktaş International, for all the latest. Of course, the news is going to start trickling in left and right. RE, who our new coach will be. Hint, hint, Mircea Lucescu. Probably. Who may be on the way out as far as players who might be on the way in. So, of course, it's time to start paying attention to that stuff. Follow us at Beşiktaş_INT. Follow this fella over here, this young man who's celebrating summer vacation now, Evran Akman at fan of BJK. Follow myself at Sir_Right_a lot. Follow Khan, who's on prolonged leave here, I guess, at Rosarian, RAZZERIAN. And as always, see you next week, everybody. Beşiktaş will be on the road in Trabzon to play Trabzonspor. Naturally, May 18th, noon here in New York City, Eastern Standard Time. So that will be 6 o'clock for you, Khan, 7 or 8 o'clock for you guys in Istanbul. Of course, check your local times. Don't take my word on anything, ever.
Facts.
But yeah, see you guys next week. We'll be here, of course, to talk about Trabzonspor. And again, the match is on Saturday. So stay tuned. The revolution will not be televised. Go Beşiktaş! Hey man, so
You'll see next time. Maybe we can actually do this on podcast.
yeah, you think.
Golden geldi.
Beşiktaş International hopes you enjoyed this program.